When a little girl whispers to a brave officer and his dog, an incredible transformation unfolds. Officer Jake Reynolds felt the weight of Maplewood's decline heavy on his shoulders. The empty storefronts, with faded open signs swinging in the gentle breeze, whispered tales of dreams lost. At 35, the burden of protecting this town was not just duty but a calling, even as whispers of judgment and despair constantly nagged at him. After all, he was a warrior molded by the harsh realities of war, yet here he was wrestling with the everyday battles of his community and his own family's financial struggles. On a sunny afternoon, while patrolling with Scout, his loyal K-9 partner, they wandered along Main Street. Suddenly, an effervescent ball of energy bounded toward him. It was Mia, a bubbly 8-year-old with wild, curly hair and deep brown eyes that sparkled like gems. "Officer Jake," she squealed, her giggles breaking the silence. For a moment, he was no longer the heavy-hearted officer but a protector embraced by warmth. "Scout looks like he needs a friend," she chirped, her voice soft yet powerful. That simple comment ignited something deep within Jake, a flicker of hope that danced past the badge that often separated him from his community. It made him forget momentarily about the burdens that weighed him down. "Want to take him for a run?" he asked, grinning. Her joyful nod sent them on a spontaneous adventure across the town. They raced through neighborhoods, a girl and her gleeful laughter at the heels of a dog whose happiness mirrored her own. They stumbled upon a stray dog curled up near the schoolyard. Without hesitation, Mia urged, "Can we help him, Officer Jake?" That question set into motion a mission that began as just a rescue. What started as saving the lost pup transformed into something remarkable. Mia's childlike enthusiasm sparked an idea, urging Jake to start a fundraiser for struggling families. "Everyone needs help," she whispered, eyes wide like saucers. It was in that moment he realized connection mattered. It made the world less lonely, yet, just as their bond began to weave a supportive spirit for Maplewood, a dark cloud loomed. Old Joe and his wife, beloved owners of the corner store, faced closure. Their debts piled higher than the creaky shelves filled with childhood goodies. Weighing job security against standing for his neighbors set his heart racing. Officers protect communities, but was it worth risking everything for a fight that felt insurmountable? Discontent simmered around him, pitiful stares aimed at his badge, murmurs filled with distrust and despair. Could he do the right thing? Could he muster the courage to fight for what mattered when his own security felt on the line? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As fundraiser day approached, whispers turned to outcry. Time seemed to slow, leaving Jake with a clenched chest. Mia looked up at him, a beacon of innocence, her hope vibrant against the dull shadows. Could one brave act change the course of a community? Or would the failings of the past reincarnate, wiping away their tender beginnings? As their obstacles drew near, he knew this was it. This could either break them or build something beautiful. Would he fight for the town he loved, or would he allow fear to dictate his choices? The morning sun hung high, casting long shadows across the schoolyard where Mia and Jake stood. Anticipation tingled in the air, filling the space with a mix of hope and anxiety. Today was the day of the fundraiser, but it felt more like the day of reckoning. Jake glanced at the flyer pinned to the notice board, its colorful lettering stark against the drab background of the crumbling brick wall. "Mia, are you ready?" he asked, trying to inject some excitement into his voice. She was bouncing on her toes, her enthusiasm contagious. "More than ready, Officer Jake. This is going to be amazing." Her laughter, bright and uncontained, radiated like sunshine itself. It was hard for Jake not to smile at her earnestness. Yet, beneath his smile lay a torrent of doubt. Would anyone even show up? As the clock struck 10, the first few families trickled into the park. Familiar faces mixed with strangers, all drawn to the promise of community, food, and hope for a second chance. Lemonade stands glistened, colorful banners rustled in the wind, and the sound of children's laughter filled the air. But in the distance, he spotted the haggard figure of old Joe. His once bright smile now twisted into a frown, shadowed by the weight of worry. Jake's heart sank. What if this event didn't raise enough money? What if they couldn't save the corner store that meant so much to so many? What if no one shows up, Mia? He muttered under his breath. Mia, overhearing, turned her wide eyes towards him. But they will, Officer Jake. People just need a reason to believe again. We're the reason. Her words struck a chord in him, a sweet reminder of the spirit that brought them all together. It wasn't about money, it was about unity. He nodded, the iron grip of uncertainty loosening, even if just a bit. As the day unfolded, it transformed into a whirlwind of laughter and generosity. Raffles, bake sales, and even a little running race for the kids brought the community together like never before. Jake could hardly believe his eyes when families began to donate items for the auction. Each new addition felt like building blocks for hope. Yet, just as feelings of triumph began to swell, the tension began to resurface. Conversations around him hinted at despair more than joy. This won't be enough, Jake overheard one woman say, shaking her head. Suddenly, he understood the looming sense of urgency. It wasn't merely about raising money, it was about restoring faith. He stepped in front of a small crowd that had gathered around the main booth. All right, everyone. He called out, his voice strong yet warm. This isn't just a fundraiser. It's a movement. Gasps of surprise pierced the murmurs as eyes turned to him. This is about more than old Joe and his store. This is about all of us. Each one of us has a role to play, and together we can lift our town from the ashes. Let us show Maplewood that hope is alive. His heart surged as his words echoed in the hearts of those present, they erupted into cheers. Jake couldn't believe the change in energy. Passion ignited in their eyes as neighbors shouted back their support. Each cheer bolstered his determination. Yet, as the excitement crescendoed, an all-too-familiar figure seemed to emerge from the crowd, face contorted in scorn. It was Mark, a longtime critic of Jake's approach. His presence sent a shiver down Jake's spine. Are you really going to make promises you can't keep, officer? This is just a waste of time. The crowd hushed, a pendulum of emotion swinging between hope and despair as they looked to Jake for his response. Was this the moment that could shatter their fragile unity? Mia clutched his hand, her warmth anchoring him in a world that felt suddenly daunting. Mark. Jake took a deep breath, eyes blazing with conviction. What if this is exactly what we need? Hope has to start somewhere, and together, we are stronger. But would his words be enough to silence the doubts? Would the jeers of the past eclipse their budding hopes? As Jake locked eyes with Mark, anticipation crackled in the air, and deep down, he knew the answer. Rested on this thin thread of belief. Could the strength of a community transform a moment of doubt into an opportunity to stand united? Would hope win the day? The tension in the air was electric. Jake felt every set of eyes on him, waiting. He could almost hear the heartbeat of the community, thumping in unison with his own. He straightened his shoulders, holding on to Mia's small hand as if it were an anchor. Mark, Jake said, feeling a growing intensity in his voice, this isn't just about us. It's about everyone here. Every single person has a story. Every family has dreams. And if we fail together. Mark's face twisted in doubt, but just then, a small voice broke through the silence. Mr. Mark. It was a little girl, no more than 6, with pigtails bouncing as she stepped forward. Her wide eyes were full of determination. "Your dog's nicer than you," she said boldly, pointing at Jake's canine companion, Baxter, who lay quietly by his side. The crowd chuckled, the tension easing just a bit. "Baxter believes in us, and I believe in us too," she declared, her voice unwavering. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd, breaking the tense atmosphere. Mark visibly bristled, but the laughter gave Jake the chance to reclaim the moment. "See?" Jake smiled at the little girl, grateful for her fearless spirit. "It's kids like her who remind us how powerful hope can be. We have it in us. We can make this happen. We just need to keep believing." Mia squeezed Jake's hand tighter. "Let us show them, Officer Jake." She cheered, her voice chiming with enthusiasm. The crowd began to buzz again. People spoke, voices rising in excitement. "Together." One man shouted. "For our community." Another woman echoed. Mark, standing at the edge, still crossed his arms as if holding back a storm. Jake could sense that the embers of doubt still flickered in his eyes. But beneath the surface, Jake also felt the swell of something deeper: determination, fueled by unity. "Let us make this a day to remember, Maplewood," Jake called out, intent on drawing everyone back to the spirit of the event. "Let us auction off the best we've got. Donations, small or large, will keep the lights on in old Joe's store. And who knows, it might even bring a smile back to his face." The crowd erupted into action, with families opening their bags and pooling together items. Laughter erupted as they exchanged stories, memories of the cherished little store that had been their meeting spot for years. But just as momentum reached a fever pitch, a flash of movement caught Jake's eye. A group of teens appeared, walking slowly toward the booth. Jake recognized them as the ones who often caused trouble in the neighborhood. Fear slithered through him. Was this a sign of rebellion or an opportunity? Mia shifted uneasily beside him, her excitement flickering like a candle threatened by the wind. Jake swallowed hard and took a step forward. "Hey, guys," he called out, forcing a smile. "You here to help out?" They exchanged glances, uncertainty painted on their faces. One of the boys shrugged, muttering, "We're just here for the free food." "Maybe, but you're also a big part of this community." Jake pressed, his heart racing. "You have skills that could help. This is your chance to pitch in, to show everyone you care." As Jake spoke, he noticed the way the teens glanced at the crowd, at the families who had gathered, the laughter, the hope. Would they be tempted to join, or would they retreat into their usual scorn? The sun dipped slightly, casting a golden hue over the park. The melting shadows danced as Jake waited, counting breaths, holding on to Mia's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of community surrounding him. "Maybe we could help," one of the teens finally said hesitantly, and like a dam breaking, the others nodded. A wave of relief washed over Jake, but the moment felt incredibly fragile. Would it hold? As they gathered around the booth, ready to dive into action, an unmistakable ache loomed in Jake's chest. This feeling was more than hope, it was a realization that change was within reach, but only if they kept the momentum going. Could the teens' choice to stand together ripple out to others? Would it inspire more unexpected allies and envelop the community in transformation? Jake had to believe in the possibility, but as he looked toward Mark, who still watched with skepticism, Jake couldn't help but wonder, would everyone embrace this change? The unknown tugged at him, a question lingering in the air like the promise of a new dawn waiting to break. Jake's heart raced as he watched the teens' tentative smiles flicker into the growing excitement of the crowd. They began to organize, each with their own unique way of contributing. One boy picked up a microphone, his voice cracking as he announced the first auction item. A handmade birdhouse drew cheers and laughter, and Jake could feel the walls between them beginning to crumble. "Look at them!" Mia exclaimed, her eyes shining like stars. "They're actually doing it. They're a part of this." Jake nodded, feeling a burst of encouragement. The community around them thrived on the energy the group of teens had unleashed. Old faces, young children, and even some skeptics slowly migrated toward the booth, curiosity piqued by laughter and joy. It was a wild dance of connection that thrummed through the park, yet, amidst the celebration, Mark remained stoic at the edge, arms still crossed, a look of skepticism still etched on his face. Jake's thoughts flickered back to the unease that had clouded their earlier interactions. Would he always be a barrier? "Hey, you! Mr. Mark!" The little girl with pigtails called out again, her voice breaking through the laugh-filled air. "Come join us." Everyone turned to look at Mark, whose expression shifted slightly, just barely. An eyebrow raised, but his demeanor unyielded. Jake's heart sank. Would the laughter and light in the crowd truly be enough to melt the ice around him? "Come on, Mark," Jake urged, stepping a little closer. "This is just as much about you as it is about us. Let us work together." With a hesitant sigh, Mark stepped forward slightly, still resistant. But something about the girl's call seemed to stir something inside him. Perhaps it was her innocence or the infectious energy surrounding them. As bids began to fly, Jake turned his focus back to the stage, leading them through a flurry of items donated, from lovingly crafted art to bags of homemade cookies. Each item exchanged wasn't just a bid, it was a lesson in unity, in what could happen when people choose to come together. Suddenly, one of the teens jumped onto the stage, waving his hands for silence. "Hey everyone! We know we haven't been around much lately," he began, his voice growing stronger with each word. "But tonight, we want to share something, too. We can help clean up the park, make it shine again." The crowd erupted into applause, some chanting, "Yes." Others began throwing out ideas for community projects, sparking discussions that took root like wildflowers. Mia's hand danced with excitement in Jake's grip. She faced him, wide-eyed. "See? They really are changing. Maybe everyone can." Jake felt a swell in his chest. Could this be the moment when everything shifted? But just then, a loud crash echoed across the park, and the crowd's energy shifted again. A window shattered from the old storehouse, a remnant of despair left from its closure, a long-awaited reminder they were still battling against a tide of doubt. The laughter faded, replaced by gasps and whispers. Jake's heart sank as eyes turned toward Mark, who stood frozen, shock written across his face. "They're just mistakes," he muttered under his breath, shifting his weight away from the center of the crowd as the hope of seconds before felt like a distant echo, but Jake wouldn't let this moment pass like a fleeting chance. "It's not a mistake, it's a reminder," he said, stepping forward once more, his voice firm but gentle. "We have to clean it up together. We have to show Maplewood what we can be." Mark turned back, the uncertainty deep in his eyes flickering beneath the surface. Would it be a rallying cry, or more walls built between them? As Bailey barked, joining the tense silence that had hurriedly fallen, Jake sought out the faces around him. Hope twinkled uncertainly, the promise of change still brittle. Would they rise, hand in hand, or collapse under disbelief once again? The night held its breath, waiting for the next movement to unfold. Jake watched Mark's face shift, uncertainty battling with a hint of curiosity. He stepped closer, wanting to bridge the gap. "Mark, think about it," he said, his voice steady. "This park represents us all. It's a part of Maplewood's heart. We can't let it stay broken." As he spoke, the crowd began to murmur among themselves, eyes darting between Mark and the shards of glass on the ground. Jake saw the teens trying to maintain the energy, jumping back into action and cracking jokes, but the tight knot of fear and doubt around Mark seemed to writhe, ready to pull them down even further. Suddenly, the little girl with pigtails approached Mark again, her small hands clasped in front of her. "Mr. Mark, if you help us, we can make it pretty again," she squeaked, her sincerity breaking through the tension like a sunbeam piercing through storm clouds. Mark looked down at her, his stern exterior shifting, if only slightly. "It's not that easy, kiddo. But it can be," she insisted. "We can do it together. You've got to help." Her pure optimism had a strange power, making the adults around her smile. Even the last bit of ice surrounding Mark began to thaw, and Jake held his breath, praying for a breakthrough. Mia leaned closer to Jake. Look at him. There's something changing. He needs that push. Jake didn't let go of Mia's hand. We all do. Alright, let us make a plan. One of the teens shouted, taking advantage of the growing energy. Ideas bounced around like fireworks. I can organize supplies. Shouted another. We can set up teams to clean up. I have a truck. Exclaimed a third, enthusiasm bubbling over. As they brainstormed, Jake kept watching Mark, looking for any sign of engagement. Slowly, Mark unfolded his arms, his expression softening as he took a step forward. The little girl smiled brightly, her innocent confidence winning more hearts than Jake could have ever imagined. Before long, people started migrating toward the broken window, a few volunteers already grabbing brooms and garbage bags from their own cars. See? Jake murmured to Mia, unable to help the genuine smile creeping onto his face. They're turning this around. The crowd wasn't just excited, they were alive, buzzing with a newfound sense of purpose and unity. Bailey barked excitedly, moving toward the small girl, who giggled and reached to pet him. Somehow, amidst the chaos of broken glass and lingering doubt, laughter began to fill the air again. Suddenly, Mark stepped forward. All right, you guys, he said, a newfound determination in his voice. Let us clean this up. But let us make sure to do it right. We'll create a schedule. Work together. If we don't do it as a team, we're back to square one. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Mark's words resonated, bringing a tangible shift. Jake felt a rush of gratitude. They were on the brink of something beautiful. This community was ready to heal, to grow, together. Just then, Mark turned to Jake, his eyes sparking with something close to warmth. Maybe you were right all along. Before Jake could respond, they heard the unmistakable sound of sirens approaching, blue lights flashing in the distance. The vibe momentarily shifted as people looked toward the entrance of the park, apprehension creeping back in. Who's coming? Mia whispered, glancing nervously at Jake, who suddenly felt a clenching in his gut. Could this be a setback? Just when it seemed the seeds of renewal were taking root, could they be overshadowed by something darker? The crowd held its breath. What was about to unfold? Would the arrival of those sirens propel them into turmoil or deepen their resolve? The sirens grew louder, cutting through the air like a knife, their wail pulling every gaze toward the entrance of the park. As the first police car rolled into view, the crowd shifted uneasily, whispers bouncing from person to person. Jake's heart raced. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down, uncertain of how this could change everything they had just built. When the vehicles came to a halt, two officers stepped out, their faces serious. But it was the officer at the back, tall and broad-shouldered, who caught Jake's attention. He had a dog at his side, a German shepherd with sharp eyes and an aura of calm authority. Bailey perked up, barking eagerly, clearly welcoming the newcomer. Stay calm. Mark called, raising his hand to the crowd. Let us see what is going on. As the officers approached, the little girl stood up straight, her small figure planted firmly in front of Mark, oblivious to the tension swirling around. She took a deep breath and marched right up to the officers, her pigtails bobbing with every determined step. Excuse me, mister, she said, looking up at the tall officer. Do you want to help us make the park pretty again? Jake held his breath. Would the officer reject her? But instead, the officer knelt, meeting her gaze. He smiled, twinkling eyes reflecting the sincerity of her question. Of course I do, young lady. What do you need? The crowd watched in stunned silence, their hearts swelling with empathy at the scene unfolding. The little girl, undeterred by the seriousness of the situation, began outlining their plan. We're going to clean up all the mess. And then we can plant flowers. Will you help us with your dog? The officer chuckled softly as if her words had dissolved some tension in the atmosphere. "I've got lots of supplies in the car," he said, gesturing back toward the police vehicle. "And I can get a few more friends to join you all." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of encouragement spreading like wildfire. The little girl beamed, her contagious joy rekindling that spark of community spirit Jake had sensed moments earlier. "See, Mr. Mark? Everyone wants to help," she exclaimed, looking up at him with innocent conviction. Uncertainty faded from Mark's face. He stepped forward, the weight of doubt lifting. "Let us show them what we can do together," he said, his voice gaining strength. They all moved in synchrony, gathering supplies and spreading throughout the park, the dog leading the way as they began to clean up the mess. Jake found himself next to Mark, who was now directing a group of teens while keeping an eye on the little girl. It was a beautiful sight. The community is dancing in turmoil but moving forward together, the laughter of children mingling with the sound of clattering tools and eager chatter. Yet, as they worked, Jake felt an urgent pull. What had started as a tiny crack in their unity had become a fissure, a reminder that every moment could tip into chaos or calm. As he glanced over at the officers, still engaging with the kids, he noticed something troubling. One officer was on his radio, speaking urgently, eyes scanning the park. "What's that about?" Jake muttered, his stomach knotting again. He shared a worried glance with Mia, who was now kneeling beside the little girl, helping her pick up bits of glass. Just as he turned back toward Mark, a shout echoed through the park. It was another officer, urgency splashing across his face. "We need all hands on deck. There's been an incident near Maplewood Avenue." This wasn't just the park anymore. The heart of their community was in jeopardy. Jake felt a chill. Would this day, meant for healing, be overshadowed by another crisis? Every heart in that park fluttered uncertainly. What fresh chaos threatened to tear at the seams they had just knitted together? Jake felt a jolt at the officer's words. The chatter in the park ceased as if someone had pressed the mute button. The laughter and joy they had built in those moments evaporated, replaced by a dense, palpable tension. People looked at one another, brows furrowed and lips pursed. What could have happened so close by? Mia whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Jake turned to her, his stomach twisting. Before he could formulate a response, the tall officer stood up, his demeanor shifting from approachable to focused. "All right, everyone," he called. His voice, deep and commanding, carried across the crowd. "We need volunteers to help secure the area around Maplewood Avenue. If anyone has information or if you have family on that street, please do not approach us. Just stay here for now." Jake's heart raced. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on him. Fear ignited in the faces of the people nearby, a worry that morphed into murmurs and hushed exchanges. His mind raced with thoughts of his neighbors, his friends. The park, once bustling with laughter, now felt like a fragile bubble, one that could burst with the slightest push. But then, he saw the little girl again, standing firm with her hands on her hips. Her eyes shone with determination, as if she had decided that today was not going to end in despair. She looked to the officer, her expression alive with innocence and hope. "Mister, we can help," she called out, her voice ringing with a sincerity that cut through the tension. The officer looked down at her, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Kid, I don't think this is a time for please," she interrupted, her voice earnest. "If we all come together, just like we were doing before, we can make everything better. We can be heroes." Mark stepped forward, rallying the crowd. "She's right. We can't let fear win. Look at us. We're already together. Let us focus on what we can do. We need to show that we care about our community." The crowd stirred, exchanging glances. There was something about the little girl's raw spirit that began to light a flicker of hope inside everyone. A few brave souls stepped forward, beginning to gather supplies. "Let us not let fear win," Jake joined in, feeling the energy pulse through him. He turned to Mia and whispered, "If they're not going to let us get close to Maplewood Avenue, we need to show we're here for one another, regardless." With the dog wagging his tail, the tall officer unfolded a roll of tape and set up a temporary barrier. He seemed to reconsider. "Okay, you want to help? I could use eyes on the ground. If you notice anything suspicious, anything out of place, you bring it to my attention, got it?" A collective nod from the crowd showed they were ready to fight against whatever chaos was looming. With renewed determination, they picked up brooms, shovels, and recycling bins, blending their efforts for the sake of the community. Music began to play softly from a hidden speaker, a poignant melody that resonated through the air, uniting their hearts. The little girl led them, scattering seeds of hope as she picked up litter, her laughter a balm against the shadows that threatened to consume them. But just as Jake began to feel a sense of accomplishment forming, another police officer rushed over to his colleague, urgency etched across his face. "Sir, we might need backup fast. There are reports of gunshots." A cold wave washed over the crowd as dread settled in again, the earlier warmth replaced by a chill that clawed at their camaraderie. Would their fragile unity withstand this new storm? Jake looked back at the little girl. She was still smiling, a beacon of innocence. But how long could that shine hold against the looming darkness? What would happen next in their attempt to protect their sanctuary? Would they rise together or fall apart? The officer's tone sharpened, his voice slicing through the haze of uncertainty. He turned back toward the crowd, urgency in his eyes. "Okay, everyone, listen closely. Stay calm and listen to what I say. If you see anything unusual, if you hear anything strange, report it immediately. We need each other now more than ever." Jake's heart thudded in his chest. The chill of fear sat heavily in the air, squashing out the earlier camaraderie. But then he saw the little girl's bright smile, still defiantly shining. Her spirit sparked something inside him, a reminder that sometimes, hope is louder than fear. "Mia, we've got to keep this going," Jake said, locking eyes with her. "We can't let the fear spread like wildfire. Let us get everyone organized, let us really do something." With new resolve, Jake began gathering people. He moved from one group to another, encouraging them to pick up tools and supplies. "We can start cleaning up right around here. It'll show everyone that we care," he said, trying to drown out the distant sounds of sirens. Mia, echoing his energy, started directing the scattered crowd. "Hey, can some folks help us over here? We've got trash bags, and we need to make this park look even better. Let us show the cops that we're here for each other." People began to rally around them once more, collecting litter and chatting awkwardly, but politely, as they worked. Jake felt a flicker of pride. This was a community he loved, people banding together, holding on to each other as they took a stand against whatever chaos lurked nearby. But as the music faded into the tense backdrop of distant sirens, a sudden burst of noise caught their attention. A group of teenagers hurried past, laughter ringing out like a jarring bell. Their carefree attitude clashed with the seriousness of the situation, causing the older members of the crowd to scowl. "Hey! Be cautious!" One of the parents shouted, their voice tinged with concern. "You don't know what's happening out there." The teenagers glanced back, their carefree grins turning uncertain. "It's just a few shots. It won't happen here." One called back, though doubt clouded the humor in his eyes. Jake frowned, his heart sinking again. "Does anyone know who should be doing what to help?" "We can't be clueless right now," he said, looking around. The little girl, still picking up litter, approached the officer and tugged insistently at his pant leg. "Mister, can't you tell everyone to help each other? Like superheroes? My mom says we need to make good choices." An unsure smile flickered on the officer's face. Something stirred in him, shifting the weight he carried. "Yeah," he murmured, "good choices indeed." With a loud clap, the officer gathered attention from the crowd. Okay, let us add a bit of unity. Everyone, instead of just standing still, let us form a circle here. Together we'll run through the park, sharing information, and keeping an eye on one another. Jake felt a pulse of courage rise within him. They could become eyes and ears, keeping one another safe. The crowd shifted, willing to reshape itself, and soon enough, they formed a line that enveloped the park in a protective embrace, hands gripping tools and sharing wary glances. As they stepped forward, it felt empowering. The little girl stood at the front, leading the charge, her spirit wild and unfazed. Just as Jake began to settle into this hopeful momentum, a patrol car sped past the park, lights flashing, urgency making the crowd turn sharply. Was this an omen? Could they face whatever was brewing outside their little sanctuary? With courage and doubt intertwining, what happened next would decide if their bond would hold. Jake inhaled deeply, determination carving through him. He knew one thing for sure, it was far from over. Would they be the heroes they aspired to be? As they formed that protective circle, Jake felt the heat of fear stirring inside him again, but he pushed it down. The little girl, with her hands on her hips and a wild look in her eyes, beamed at Mia and flashed a smile at the officer. "What's your name, superhero?" she asked, her voice as bright as her sunny disposition. "Liam," the officer replied, crouching down to her level. "And you're quite the hero yourself, aren't you?" Mia grinned then, almost reflexively, stepping closer to Liam. "You should join us. We're going to protect the park together." "Absolutely," Liam replied, spreading his arms wide as if welcoming the universe into their circle. The mood brightened, the tension easing just a fraction. As they started their patrol around the park, Jake took notice of their actions. They weren't just picking up litter anymore, they were holding conversations, laughing, uniting against the uncertainty. He felt pride swell in his chest. But the sirens didn't stop. Their wails crept closer, mingling with the laughter, thickening the air with urgency. "Jake, look!" Mia called, pointing to a small crowd gathering near the playground. A woman was pacing, hair disheveled, hands fiddling nervously with her phone. "What's going on?" Jake called out, quickening his pace to reach her. The woman looked up, panic flashing in her eyes. "My daughter. She was just here. I can't find her anywhere." Jake's heart dropped. "What does she look like?" "She was wearing a pink dress. About this tall." The woman gestured, her voice shaking. "Mia, stay by Liam," Jake commanded gently, but he could see the concern painted on her face. "Be careful," she insisted. "We can help." Jake hesitated but then nodded, knowing that their unity was stronger together. "All right, everyone. Listen up. There's a missing girl. We need to split up, check every corner of the park. Let us stay in groups." The urgency sent ripples through the crowd. They nodded, voices rising in agreement, determination taking hold. Jake felt the resolve of the people around him, their spirits charging forward like an army. As they scattered, Jake turned to Mia. "You ready?" She nodded fervently. "Let us find her." The pair moved toward the playground, Jake scanning the area while keeping Mia close. They searched behind swings, under slide structures, and in the sandboxes. Each second felt like an eternity. Mia suddenly squealed. "Look, Jake." Jake followed her gaze there, texting furiously on her phone, was the girl in the pink dress. Relief flooded through him. He motioned for the mother to follow them, and Mia dashed over to the girl. "Hey! You have to come back," Mia said, grabbing her hand gently. "Your mom's worried about you." The girl blinked, confused, but a soft smile spread across her face as she recognized Mia. "Mom!" The girl squealed, tears filling her eyes. "I was playing hide and seek." Jake watched as the mother rushed forward, enveloping her daughter in a hug. Relief washed over the park, and cheers erupted among the crowd. "We did it! We worked together!" Jake shouted, throwing his arms in the air, and the crowd erupted in joy. But a new sound pierced the atmosphere, harsh and terrifying. A scream echoed from the very edge of the park. "What was that?" Mia whispered, clutching Jake's arm tightly. Jake felt a sense of dread grip him once again. The energy from earlier faded, replaced by a heavier air of uncertainty. "Stay close," he muttered under his breath, focusing on Mia's wide eyes. "We'll face whatever comes next, together." Just as he said those words, they heard footsteps approaching quickly. Who or what was coming their way? The crowd's energy shifted, the previous joy morphing into palpable fear. Jake's heart raced. Would they stand together against whatever darkness was creeping in? Or would they crumble under the weight of the unknown? The answer lingered just beyond the horizon. The chaos that erupted in Maplewood hung thick in the air. Fear twisted the faces of the people gathered in the park, shadows dancing where hope had flickered moments before. Jake stood firm, heart pounding. The unity they had built felt fragile, but he knew one thing: they could not let fear dictate their actions. "Mia, stay close," he murmured, feeling the warmth of her small hand in his grip. Together, they watched as the crowd shifted uneasily, anticipation thrumming through them like the tension in a pulled bowstring. The scream echoed again, rising from the edge of the park. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers, and the atmosphere thickened with dread. Jake could feel eyes on him, waiting for a sign, a hero to guide them through the storm. Then, from behind the tall trees, a group of teenagers emerged, faces painted with panic, followed by frantic shouts. "It's just an accident. We didn't know." One boy yelled, hands raised in surrender, knuckles white. Jake's heart sank. Had they caused trouble again? "Mia, I need you to stay here with the officer," Jake said, reluctantly letting go of her hand. "I'll be right back." With a determined stride, he approached the teens, whose wild eyes darted around as if they could outrun the tension in the air. "What happened?" Jake demanded, trying to calm the chaos swirling around them. There are some kids by the road. They needed help." One boy shouted, desperation spilling over in his voice. "We thought they were playing." Jake felt the ground slip beneath him, resolve solidifying inside. "Which kids? Where?" A shaky finger pointed back toward the wooded path. Without hesitation, Jake turned, fear and hope propelling him forward. "Stay together," he called back to the crowd. "We're going to check it out." As he raced forward, the sound of sirens mingled in the distance, making his heart race faster. Mia's light-hearted laughter, the community's grit, it all pulsed through him like a lifeline. He reached the road where a group of children huddled, concern written on their young faces. "Hey! Are you all okay?" he called, kneeling to meet them at their level. One little boy looked up, tears glistening in his eyes. "We thought it was a game, but someone fell." Jake's stomach dropped. "Where?" "Right over there," the boy pointed. Moving with urgency, Jake followed the direction, finding a small girl, clutching her ankle, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Hey, it's all right," he knelt beside her, soothing her with calm, gentle words. "I'm Officer Jake. I'm going to help you." The girl whimpered. "I fell on the pavement. I think it hurts." Before he could assess her injury, the little girl in the pink dress from earlier dashed forward, fueled by a brave spirit. "We can help her," she cried out, her voice breaking through the tension. Jake's heart swelled. She had the same courage he had seen before. "You're right," he replied, his voice steady. "Let us do this together." The crowd began to form around them again, laughter and shouts of encouragement lighting the grim atmosphere. One of the teenagers, hesitant at first, stepped forward to assist, while others rallied to bring blankets and water. As Jake explained how to make a splint, he felt the community's energy returning. They were no longer just individuals, they were a tapestry woven from shared purpose, fear transforming into bravery. When the little girl was settled and receiving care, Mia returned to Jake's side, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "You helped her," she exclaimed, her voice full of triumph. "Thanks to all of you," Jake replied, glancing at the crowd. "Look what we did together." Applause erupted, hands clapping together, voices rising with renewed fervor. But in that moment of celebration, Jake's gaze wandered to the edge of the park, spotting Mark standing a few feet away. With a sudden rush, Mark stepped forward, his face transformed, the weight of doubt replaced by newfound hope. I was scared, Jake," he admitted, eyes softening as they met the glow of the community. "But watching everyone come together, it made me realize we're stronger than I thought." Jake nodded, his heart lifting. "Exactly. We can create change, rooted in love and acceptance. Let us keep supporting one another." The crowd cheered. Together they set their hearts to building a brighter Maplewood, one filled with laughter, care, and unity. In the coming days, they rallied together. The fundraiser wasn't just a moment, it flourished into a continuous celebration of hope. Old Joe's store was saved, but more than that, the town itself was woven tighter than it had been before. As the sun set on another day of hard work and laughter, Jake looked around, a radiant smile lighting his face. He saw resilience, friendship, and love, a transformation that couldn't be broken. They had fought through fear and emerged victorious, and from that moment on, Jake held his head high, knowing that together they would face whatever challenges arose, embodying the spirit of community. Now, it was time for everyone to step forward and share their stories, the laughter echoing long into the summer night. Don't wait another second. You need to subscribe now to this channel to not miss our next exclusive stories. Please, leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us spread the word. Comment below with your feelings and reactions about this ending, it means the world to us, and you know you have friends who need to see this transformation, so share this video instantly with at least 5 friends. True fans understand the importance of supporting our journey. Let us continue this adventure together.